So today is November 18th, 2019, and um, 2019 actually. And it's interesting to note that Mel said to Richard this morning that um, he that Richard he asked Richard if Richard was recording him because he felt he was being recorded and he didn't like it. And I think this is very humorous because um, Mel had just uh, reported me previously to Christina for using a cuss word and having pictures of women on my computer, and never asked. I told Mel, I'm dating, online dating, and when you social media, somebody you get chatting with somebody, and so he says, well, send me a picture so I can see who you are, what you look like, if I'm talking to you. But I think that it brings up an interesting point that the staff member is concerned about. He's feeling that he's being watched and recorded. This is very interesting because at the Karen incident and around Christmas last year, when Christina found out that I had gotten an attorney to help protect some residents here and myself from her continued threatening with eviction, which about 11 times for people here, which is an insane number. Even if there were one, I mean, nobody can see any such thing going on here. And at that time, of course, Bernadette had told probably that, of course, Dee had been involved and was one of those people who, had heard about the attorney. And so Christina immediately forbade Dee from being alone with me because I had talked to all these other people about their experiences concerning Christina threatening them with eviction, and had gotten an attorney as a result because Christina is so irrational and unpredictable and so emotionally volatile that she threatens people with eviction. And one of these times she's going to do it, and as you see, she did. They just delivered me termination of residency here on November 2nd. So you see, the thing that we were concerned about actually has happened. So, but I think it's interesting to note that that Dee is being monitored by Lynn, according to Dee. That one time she came into my apartment for something, and she says, I can't be caught in here because if Lynn sees me, I'll get in trouble. So the staff, Christina, has the staff, and who knows how pervasive it is, who's reporting on who. There's Mel, and there's Lynn, and there's Glenda, and there's Dee, and they're all terrified of raising the wrath of Christina, as she has so demonstrated against one of the staff members. So that's not a supposition or a hypothetical. It's already happened, and it seems like all the staff is very on edge to buckle under and do what Christina wants, because she's so I don't know what to say. She's so sensitive to the least bit of contention, that they want to appear just to do everything they can to keep her emotionally stable, so she doesn't reach out and cause them of being censored like she did with Dee. And so I think this is a very instructive experience that we saw today. And I think that it shows that the staff, like Mel, are just totally paranoid because none of the residents have recorded. I've never recorded him, and Richards has never recorded him, and so I doubt anybody is recording him, but except for Lynn and Glenda. Dee's not going to do that, but Lynn and Glenda have been used by Christina to monitor and report on Richard's whereabouts. And of course, they were used along with Mel to report on me and my whereabouts without my consent and without supposedly my knowledge, and contrary to the privacy policy of Annie Maxim House Inc. So there's some questionable behavior on the part of Christina due to her perceived threat. So I was no threat to her, but she's reported this to the board of directors, and they feel I'm a threat. And but we weren't doing anything. We just got contacted an attorney that we knew in case Christina or the board tried to evict people. Basically Christina, because she's the one who's reporting things to the board, and the board is believing her. And that the attorney that we located at that time, 1 or 2 years ago, are the ones that I went to directly when I received the termination of residency on. So you see, the things that we were preparing for actually came true, and we also knew that if Christina found out, that she would be very paranoid, retaliatory, go into an attack mode, and she found out because Bernadette is probably the one, because it was what it sounded like, and she did exactly that, and she, along with the board, drafted the eviction papers. So exactly what we thought would happen did happen when she accidentally, well, actually Bernadette told her on purpose, apparently. And why didn't Christina come to me and say, hey, what are you talking about? Why are you doing this? See? No. She went underground, became paranoid, and started having the people reporting on me and all the staff. And you see, and of course the board believed her, and the board felt they were getting threatened, their authority, and I was a troublemaker, and so then they started drafting the papers on before 3/7 to have me evicted, which Christina said had been forwarded to me, and it wasn't. I never saw such a thing, nor did anybody give me any notice. But then I saw that with the double cleaning, where there was nothing, it had been cleaned, and my housekeeper had been cleaning it every week, and they came in and said, the stove had to be cleaned and the water spots had to be cleaned every day, and made these ridiculous things. And obviously the board was interested in getting rid of me. They didn't want to get the apartment back. No, they wanted to get rid of me, which is a very different motivation and reason to carry out that action. One is without cause, and the other was with cause. Anyway, so that's a little more what's happening at Annie Maxim House today. And it's primarily because of Christina, and her paranoia, which is one of the major indicators of being a bipolar personality disorder. So anyway, I think that she should be examined and assessed.
So, concerning Mel's remark that he thinks he's being recorded and saying this to Richard, initiating the conversation, and saying this, and then he doesn't like it and want it to happen, is actually probably a directive for him to do this by the attorney, Annie Maxim's attorney, in order to say to Mel, as the attorney apparently is aware that Sergeant Peterson was being recorded against his will, obviously, and as in the privacy policy by anniemaximus.org, it says that they will not gather information without the person's consent. Notice that I never gave my consent, and yet they went about gathering information specifically from Mel. Now it's on the other foot for him. He doesn't like it. Well, how about that? And then also Christina had Dee and Lynn and Glenda reporting me clearly without my okay, without my authorization. And you see what happens when an attorney gets involved. All of a sudden, Annie Maxim's house starts, the residents and staff and the board start, now they see there's some laws. They're not Christina's rules. They're not the board of directors' rules, the resident handbook. No, there are state, federal laws that have to be abided by. And so this was probably something that he was directed to do. And of course, he left, and then Richard subsequently went looking for him and asked Lynn where he was and such. And then Mel reappears, Lynn doesn't know where he was, and, that kind of thing when he's coming back. And yet, after Richards makes this inquiry about this statement that Mel had insinuated he was feeling he was getting recorded, probably is, was set up by the attorney, my guess, is to create a legal framework so that this would say that, permission was not being granted. And of course, in my case, I guess it didn't matter to them. They went ahead and did it anyway, along with Richard when they did the same thing to Richard. And of course, nobody was recording Mel. As far as I know, I wasn't and hadn't, and Richard never did either.
So anyway, this explanation of the 911 4M call that resulted from the previous actions of Christina to force herself on me, as I've described, and ultimately culminating in achieving this done with Sergeant Peterson, and when they finish, there's a fresh start. And so I'm unaware of why Christina got this need from starting a few 4 or 5 days earlier when I left the dining room, that she had to do this to me when I never said anything about when I left the dining room, and never indicated that what I was doing and ignoring her in order to concentrate on what I needed to do rather than her needs, why she developed, for some reason, this insatiable urge to ultimately use the force of the Rochester Police Department to carry out the fulfillment of some need that she had developed when I left the dining room Monday a few days earlier. Something is wrong with Christina. Something is wrong with Christina. She should be investigated and evaluated according to her words and actions by a licensed physician, and also the collusion with the police department. Because why did Peterson show up 6 months later on 11/2 when I made simple wellness check, which was clearly indicated? Why was he there, saying things that he could only have heard from Christina? What is going on? Why would he have been notified to come to deal with me, put me in my place? So angry, exploding out of the car. So he must have been told something by the board of directors or Christina. What is he their personal go-to guy at the Rochester Police Department?